On today's episode of the Locked On Knicks podcast, the New York Knicks dominate the Denver Nuggets on OG Anunoby's career night.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up? You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. We're about to get into the Knicks, dare I say it, win of the season here on Locked On Knicks. But before we do, I want to remind you that today's episode is sponsored by Built. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. And I wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. You can do that by subscribing and hitting that notifications bell. Tell us in the comments, because it helps us out a lot, what you thought of OG Anunoby's career high, and if you think this was the Knicks' win of the season so far. But who's talking to you? I'm Gavin, Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, the Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. He is Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of The Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. You can check them out on all forms of social media at thestrick.land. We are about to get into some Knicks Nuggets talk. But before we do, I want to remind you, you can read about this game as well, and you can do it through us. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter, the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. All right, now that the housekeeping is out of the way, I'm just going to say it one more time. I think win of the season coming off maybe the loss of the season for the New York Knicks. A day after we came on here, we're saying, all right, who has this team beat? What have they accomplished? Is there any reason for hope in this world? The Knicks come out with a performance like this. The Nuggets finished with 118, but make no mistake, this was a dramatically improved defensive effort for the New York Knicks. And somehow in a season full of them, maybe their best offensive effort, Alex. They set a franchise record with 45 assists in this game. They had a franchise record at halftime with 23 assists. And, of course, the big three showed out. Karl-Anthony Towns clearly outplaying Nikola Jokic, 30 points, 15 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. Jalen Brunson, a masterpiece of a game from him, 23 points, a career high. I'm going to be saying that a lot, 17 assists. But I think we have to start with OG Anunoby, who dropped 40 points for the first time in his entire career on 16 of 23 shooting. That was with missing his final 3 shots, or 3 of his final 4 shots, I should say. It was 15 of 20 through 3 quarters. Just another incredible performance in a season full of them. I think because we've spent so much time complaining about Mikal Bridges, we maybe haven't done enough to honor what OG's done, but he's essentially given you all the production you ever could have wanted from Mikal on the season right now. I think it's over the I realized I did not write this down when I thought I did. I think it's now 23 points, 6 rebounds, a couple of assists over his last 9 games on just ridiculously good shooting, 58% from the field, 46% from 3, 85% from the foul line, with arguably like all NBA first team caliber defense so far. He's given you, again, everything you could have wanted from Mikal Bridges. It has been all NBA type production from Mikal Bridges these last 9 games.
By OG Anunoby, you mean?
Oh yeah, by OG Anunoby. I'm trying to push that into reality, but yeah.
But also, how dare you steal my first talking point, because that was exactly what I was going to say. I was gonna say as well. I mean, I think maybe you don't have to worry so much about Mikal Bridges on the offensive end if OG Anunoby just kind of becomes Mikal Bridges or some version of him, like a better version of what he was on the Nets, where like he's actually giving it 100% on defense every night too, and still able to score as much as he did in this game. I mean, he didn't really do anything too new either from what we were expecting. He's just doing everything at sort of the highest level. Like, shot 5 of 7 from 3. I mean, every single time the ball touches hands outside the 3-point line, you just have that thought right now of like, oh, that's going in. Oh, that one's going in. Like every single thing. And the shot just looks so smooth. I mean, it's such a welcome departure from last year when we were watching in real time as his, elbow became more and more irritating to him with that bone spur. And, watching in real time is like the defense was still there and everything else was still there, but the shot started becoming more shot put than jump shot over time. And, now to see him kind of come full circle, especially after even during preseason, I remember thinking like, oh, it still looks a little wonky, the shot. Like it still looked like he was pushing a little too much or whatever. And yet now it's just, I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, and the mid-range shot too is, I would say, just as effective, if not, well, not more effective. That's like the one thing that Mikal really had going for him. But both of those guys have such an effective mid-range shot now that they can go to, which is, I think, as the season goes on, hopefully all of our concerns with Mikal float away and he's able to start hitting threes again. But come playoff time, that mid-range shot is a shot that wins championships sometimes. Like, because when the defense tightens up in the playoffs, the perimeter gets harder to get shots at. The rim certainly gets harder to get shots at. And you've got to rely on that mid-range shot sometimes. The Knicks have now 3, if not 5 guys that really are like masters of that shot. Like I would say Brunson, Bridges, and Anunoby are like on a next level of absurd with the mid-range shot as far as how often they're able to put that in. And then Karl-Anthony Towns and Josh Hart are very capable of doing it. So OG kind of proving that that's in his bag and that he can get to that spot off the dribble too is huge. Even if he's still not, I still don't think that he's, I don't know, like Kevin Durant or something, you know what I mean? He's not able to just create something out of nothing, but if you put him in comfortable situations where he's able to take a few dribbles against a tilted defense, like he could do pretty much anything. And he's really proving that in these recent games. And then especially this game where he goes absolutely bonkers and sets a career high. It was just a really fun game for him. Really fun game overall. Like it's kind of crazy. You mentioned all the stat lines, but it's insane that like Karl-Anthony Towns can have 30 and 15 against Nikola Jokic. And it's like the third most important thing in a game because 2 other guys set career highs. The Knicks tied a franchise record with assists. Like it's just pure insanity with how this game went.
Yeah, I do think it was funny because I was talking about it with DJ before the season started. I was like, do you think he can make a leap as a scorer? And essentially what DJ said, which is kind of what's happened, is like, I think he can improve on the margins. Like he's just never going to have the kind of handle to be someone you throw the ball to and ask him to create a shot. But he has kind of done that at times this year. Like he's just gotten really, really good at knowing how to leverage his strength, where he will like catch, especially when the defender's closing out on him, drive him. And he's learned like maybe some of the tricks of the trade from Jalen Brunson, how to get away with like that little like subtle like elbow push off that we saw MJ use, that we saw Kobe use, and OJ, Jesus, that's not a good comparison. OG, like those guys, is just insanely freaking strong. And you see him like just get away with a little bump and guys go flying back. I think it's a combination of that bump, and he's just gotten really good at stopping his momentum. And I don't know about you, I feel like that shot's gone in like 80% of the time this year. It feels like every time he gets to that mid-range, it's going in. And I think he's also benefited more than anyone else on this team from Jalen Brunson's leap as a passer. We'll get into it next segment, but Jalen Brunson now up to 7.9 assists per game after never averaging over 6.7 in his entire career. And you see it over and over again where like Brunson's the one hitting him, right? Like in this game, like OG's, I think it was his first 3. It was a cat off ball screen with Jalen with the ball, which is so tough because the entire defense is just staring at Jalen Brunson. They don't want to take their eyes off him. You don't want to switch off Karl-Anthony Towns because if you do, he's just popping for a 3 or he's like bully ball driving a smaller player. So OG just sneaks right over to the wing. He's like the least of anyone's concern in that kind of action. Brunson hits him easy 3. They end the first quarter, which I haven't seen a lot of this, but I want to see more of it. Another way you can take advantage of Cat being out there is, again, you have that 5-out spacing. So they run a pick and roll with OG Anunoby and Jalen Brunson. OG, much like Josh Hart, just kind of shorts it, like only rolls to the foul line. Brunson waits for the Nuggets to trap him, which they were doing all night. Brunson hits OG. OG goes like bully ball down the lane and one layup. Really, really nice finish. Or excuse me, it wasn't a foul, but he finished over Nikola Jokic. We saw him post up Jamal Murray. We saw him like running the court really well for 2 dunks like early in the second quarter. Another like play where Brunson tilted the defense. Jokic was off him, catch in the corner, drive finish over MPJ. I think that was an and one. Just to like everything you can want from OG Anunoby, to your point, like he did it in volume. Incredible game from him. We'll come back in just a sec. We're going to talk Jalen Brunson, career high in assists. Karl-Anthony Towns dominating Nikola Jokic, and just one of the great offensive nights in Knicks history. That next on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we got to let you know about our friends over at Built. And if you're a renter, I'd start taking advantage of Built if I were you, because here's the thing. We earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else we buy, but we should also be earning points on rent, one of our biggest monthly expenses. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high-value points on rent and around their neighborhood. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world that you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experience that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's JOINBILT.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join Built, that's BILT.com/lockedonnba to start earning points on your rent payments today.
And we also wanted to tell you about our friends over at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, what up? We are back on Locked On Knicks. Alex, I'll leave it up to you. I've said it so many times already. Jalen Brunson, career high, 17 assists. Karl-Anthony Towns, I think there's a case to be made, even though he certainly had more explosive offensive outings, given what he did defensively, rebounding, passing-wise in this game, and efficiency-wise. Might have been his game of the season. Where do you want to start between those two?
I think Jalen Brunson is where you got to start. I mean, I got to give some love to the fact that he set a new career high in this game. And I actually wanted to circle back on one of the things we were just talking about with OG that you had mentioned in the last segment, which is working in new looks involving OG in the pick and roll. I thought were huge. You know, it's not something that they're going to go to every single possession, but I think it makes a ton of sense to go to that. And that's something that is just going to make Brunson more dangerous. Like just the timing and accuracy of the passes that he's throwing on pick and roll right now, like is next level. And honestly, like I don't know. I don't want to say that I didn't think he was a good passer previously, because you know he's definitely shown some good passing ability before, but I didn't think he was this good of a passer. I mean, he's now reaching, like, in recent games. I mean, I don't have the number pulled up in front of me. I probably should have looked, but like I feel like in the last 10 to 15 games or so, he's probably averaging like 11 assists per game, which is insane. Like that's not
He's at 9.5 over his last 10.
There we go. So I mean, he's definitely taking a leap. And I mean, of course, that number is buoyed a little bit by just having 17. But
yeah,
you know, even the best passers are going to have 6 assists in one game and 15 in another. Sometimes, that's just how it goes. But the regularity with which he's getting 10 plus assists, and when it seems like it's a choice for him, that's kind of how you know that he's taking another step. Because there's like Chris Paul, for example, in his prime was able to get 40 on you pretty much any night. And yet what he mostly chose to do was set up his teammates and get those 10 plus assists per game. But when, it came down to it, and like when he was on the Hornets back in the day or whatever, like they used to sometimes just need him to score 35, 40 points. And I think we're seeing Brunson, even though his scoring average is down this year so far from what it was last year, I think we're seeing him become a more complete player in all facets of his offense. And it seems like, with the notable exception of a few games, the Utah one, like one game ago, I don't want to put crazy blinders on to the fact that like he had a really bad game in the last game, and maybe there's something to be said for flexing the scoring muscles a little more just to avoid those sort of performances. But if he can strike this balance where he can either be a Chris Paul passer or an Allen Iverson scorer, he's just going to keep going with the ascension of like one of the top 5 or so players in the league. Like, I think right now he's playing about the best offensively that he has in his entire Knicks career so far, which is a really high bar to clear. But the fact that he's reading the floor as well as he is, the fact that the Knicks have all these really nice looks that they've already cooked up in like less than 20 games so far is pretty spectacular. Like, I think that this is only going to continue to grow, and there's only going to be more and more wrinkles. And he seems to just understand every little wrinkle to the nth degree. He's starting to really have an innate sense for like where his teammates are going to be at any given moment. But the most impressive thing to me is just like, with his height, with his wingspan, with everything else, that he's still able to just wrap these passes around, still able to just put the right amount of English on the ball to get it to someone exactly where they need it to be, whether they're driving to the hoop, whether it's in their shooting pocket, whatever. Those little things matter, and they're sort of what differentiates a good passer from a great passer. And he's hitting all the boxes for great passer right now.
Yeah, I think it is a leap in his game for sure that we've seen steadily coming over the last 3 years. And it's also the difference between having OG Anunoby and Karl-Anthony Towns out there versus, I don't know, RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, right? You're talking about 2 high volume 40. I mean, Towns this year's close to 50% from 3 guys. And like, even with Mikal Bridges not shooting that well, like, it is a very different ecosystem, and he gets to run essentially what he got to run part-time in Dallas, which is like a 5-out spread pick and roll offense. And that is that's the dream for any point guard. And Jalen is certainly rolling in it right now. I think you nailed it in terms of like just his operating speed in the pick and roll. Like he has like gotten to the point where like this is like point guard AP or point guard grad school, where you are just taking that extra beat. And Jamal Crawford did a really good job noting it, like that extra dribble in the pick and roll to say like, I'm going to hold Jokic for 1 more second, so Cat gets an even easier look. And you just see over and over again, like I think there should be, this is probably an old Bill Simmons concept, but there should be like assists and maybe golden assists where guys like don't take a dribble off it. Like he's spoon feeding guys right now. Like these are automatic looks. Like it's a slip to Towns, 1-2 step layup, hit OG, wide open 3. And I like that, to your point, like he mixed that in while having just dominant scoring stretches when the Knicks need it, when the Nuggets were kind of pushing back a little bit in the second quarter. Like he had 9 straight points to really blow this game open, like a back down on Trey Alexander into like a reverse spin, like foul line jumper. And I like that, like that mid-range game is starting to come along, starting to come back to him. Another one where like he had like a push dribble to split a double, a euro into like a high arcing lefty layup over Trey Alexander, then hit like that deep 3, like where that he just shot the second the ball touched his hands off of an OG Anunoby, like transition offensive rebound. And then maybe my favorite play of the entire night from him, like that fake dribble handoff on the right side where he was going like half speed and then just like a nasty like inside spin move on MPJ, slowed down just enough that MPJ could catch up just to foul him, and 1 layup. Like I just thought he was really, really in his bag. Totally complete game from him. The other guy, we said it, who was just a monster, Karl-Anthony Towns in this one. I will resist the urge to recite that picturesque stat line a third straight time, but 21 points in the first half. Alex, I thought this was, if not his best defensive game of the season, top 2 or 3. And it certainly started on the perimeter for the Knicks, but I thought maybe the single biggest difference from the Jazz game to this game was how engaged he was and how you just saw over and over again, like he made an effort at the rim. And it's kind of the same thing we always said with Julius Randle, right? That is the only thing you can ask from him. And like he was going straight up. But the biggest thing to me was that he was going chest to chest with guys at the rim. And like, he actually like made contact, like against the Jazz over and over again. You saw guys going up and Cat was jumping and no one was touching him because he wasn't actually close enough to make contact with the guy shooting the ball. I thought his defense was way, way better in this one. 3 steals, like just getting his hand in the cookie jar over and over again in pick and roll. And like, honestly, like a big part of holding Nikola Jokic in a matchup he loves to just 22 points and 7 assists, about as well as anyone's guarded Jokic this year.
Yeah, and that continues a theme from last year as well. If you listen to Timberwolves fans from last year who were very impressed with how Cat played Jokic and just defense in general in that Western Conference semis. I want to talk more about that in just a second, including just how my theory about Cat getting very up for the big matchups against other centers. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But first, I got to let you all know about some underwear. That's right. I am talking about Skims. This episode is brought to you by Skims, and they're my favorite underwear. I'm actually wearing them right now. I'm not going to show you because that's inappropriate. But I'll tell you, they are the most comfortable underwear that I have ever had. And I really thought that I would want to get the stretch 5-inch boxer brief because that's more similar to what I usually wear. But the stretch 3-inch boxer brief has actually been my favorite. It sits at a really comfortable place. I find they don't really ride up much when I'm like playing basketball or whatever, which is always one of my chief concerns when I get a new pair of underwear. Like, are they breathable so that if I find myself just doing something athletic that I will be comfortable? And then are they not going to ride up? Because the most annoying thing is when you're like playing sports or whatever, and then you're in between plays having to reach down and like just adjust your business down there, get everything, set. It's not fun. So the 3-inch Skims, the stretch boxer briefs, those have been my favorite. If you need a recommendation, and maybe you can mention that when you shop Skims men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and let them know we sent you. Specifically, let them know Alex told you to get the 3-inch stretch brief. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gifts for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, we're back in talking through this huge Nuggets win, Gavin. Not an exaggeration, hopefully not hyperbole. Win of the season. The Knicks have a tendency to get their win of the season or a candidate for it against the Nuggets for whatever reason. I think it was 2 years ago. I was at that game when they had that big comeback. I forget if that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever the case. A little while back, they had that really big comeback against them at the Garden, and I was there for that one. And that was a lot of fun. This one, way more improbable. It was brought up a number of times on the broadcast, but like the Knicks usually don't win in Denver. They actually hate both of the mountainous cities, which I guess isn't unusual, but like Utah, even for how bad Utah's been in recent years, they have a surprisingly bad record there. And Denver, definitely a horrible record because they're usually really good. I think on the broadcast, they said the Knicks had lost 22 of their last 25 there or something like that. It's just a staggering number of losses in Denver. And I know it had been like 15 years between wins there or something up until like last season or the season before. So it really, really tough place to win, just thanks to that elevation and everything. Didn't affect them, didn't affect Karl-Anthony Towns, who I mentioned briefly in the last segment, but I do have this sort of pet theory that and I don't think it's unreasonable to just say this is definitely the case. Like he takes these matchups against other top centers in the league very personal. Like we've seen it against Joel Embiid recently, where I think that he had one of his best games of the season against the Sixers in Embiid's return, and like really went at Embiid hard, seemed to just in general want to play harder in the paint. And, to your point, be getting bodies into everybody, go after every rebound as hard as humanly possible. In this game, I actually thought early on, I was a touch worried before he settled in. It almost looked like he was going to go a little too hard at it.
Yep.
In this game, like early on, I think he had like one like dumb foul, and he was just kind of like, it seemed like he was just doing like the pickup game thing where he just was like, give me the ball, and just wanted the ball and wanted to one-on-one Jokic, like every possession early on. Had there was one particular like little hook attempt that just really
Yeah.
made me go, oh, dude, I hope this isn't what we're in for tonight. Like
He
it
had
was,
like three guys around him, and I think it was either OG or Brunson was like he clearly saw him and then like looked
yeah,
him off. He was like, nah, it's cat time,
yeah,
baby. And then went for it.
exactly. And just, clanged it off the back of the rim. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a long night. But that was within the first like 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And clearly he settled in great after that and started playing within the flow of the offense. And, hopefully that's just something that they're hammering home with all these guys because, we're seeing them set or come close to setting like franchise records and assists in almost every game now. And that's so unlike every other Tibbs-based offense so far in his career with the Knicks. Like usually the longer the season goes on, the less assists they're getting every game because they settle more into the, your turn, my turn, ISO ball, like just run everything through Jalen Brunson. Like he might get some assists, but he's going to score a ton of points no matter what, like flirt with 30 every single game. Now we're seeing more of an offense. I don't want to say an offense by committee, but like, because it's still clearly run by Jalen Brunson, but like just an offense where the focus is more on how do we find the open man here, which is how you win in the NBA. And, it's crazy that they scored 145 points in this game. And yet Mikal Bridges again had a poor offensive showing and was like 6 of 16 overall, 2 of 8 from 3. I mean, if he had canned a few of those threes, the Knicks are scoring 150 plus in regulation in this game, which is insane. But so much of that comes from that Cat and Brunson dynamic. And I mean, that was on full display in this game. That was what, allowed Cat to go off the way that he did. He was the recipient of the lion's share of Brunson's assists, just out of that quick pick and roll. And they're just such a deadly combo because you can't lay off Brunson or he's going to hit a 3 in your eye. Like Brunson, for quote, only scoring 23 points in this game, like his overall line was 8 of 14, but 4 of 5 from 3. And like the 3 was effortless in this one for him. Like you knew that every time that you didn't pay attention to him at the 3-point line, he was going to hit it in this game just based off early returns. And so Denver had to play him really tough out there. And that led to him just making so many of those pinpoint passes to the interior to cutters, whether it was Cat, whether it was OG coming baseline or whatever. It was just, I mean, it sucks. I'm trying to talk about Cat, but it kind of does come back to Brunson in some ways because I think that a lot of it had to do with how well he was setting the table, but just another phenomenal performance for Cat. And to your point, I'll let you talk on the defense a little more. I thought he played really well on defense as well, was getting his hands in the lane a lot, had 3 steals, but like not having a block doesn't really tell the story because I thought that, to your point, he intimidated more around the rim than we've seen recently.
Yeah, it was a much more concentrated effort, and I thought it was across the board. I mean, for everything Mikal Bridges struggled with offensively, I thought his defense overall in the first half was pretty good. Did have one play I saw Benji note on Twitter that I watched, and he was 100% right where Jamal Murray just toasted him, and it wasn't even like him failing to get around a screen. Like it was just one-on-one and ended up being an assist to Jokic. But I thought Mikal was pretty solid on that end. I thought OG was really good defensively. Like I didn't even mention what was maybe his play of the game when we were talking about him, where he was kind of in help with Towns and he just swatted Jokic and went coast to coast for a jam. But like to be I'm going to pull up the game log for the guy right now, but to be, as far as I can tell, the first team all year to hold Jokic both under 25 and I'm going to double check this. Yeah. So Jokic, the least he'd scored in a game was 23 against OKC, and he had 16 assists in that game. That is since the first night of the season where he had 16 points against Oklahoma City, and then he had 13 assists. So Oklahoma City, who's like far and away at times this year been the best defense in basketball, they are the only other team that's kind of contained Joker like this. But it really hasn't happened. Like this was as complete of an effort as you could have against a guy who I would say, even with everything Giannis is doing, is far and away the best player in the game. Probably a top 10 player of all time. I don't even think it's that big of a debate that he's a top 10 player of all time at the absolute apex of his powers. And like this Knicks defense, like a game after they couldn't do anything against the Jazz, shut him down. And again, you don't want to read too, you just like, I probably got too low against Utah. I don't want to get too high on this game. Like the shooting luck rebounded, like Jokic, I think, what was he, like 1 for 6 from 3-point range in this one? Like that obviously will, he finished 2 for 7 from 3, but that'll fluctuate both ways. But I just thought this is kind of what you hope for the Knicks against the top 10 offense in the league. Just a focused effort. I keep using that term, like make them feel you. Like I think the Knicks were physical from the onset. They got into the ball. They paid attention to the game plan. I think it was huge to get Deuce McBride back on both ends of the floor. He gave them 28 great minutes, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 for 9 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3. More great defense from Cam Payne, more great shooting from Cam Payne. 11 points, 5 assists in just 18 minutes. Again, like you want to go per 36 on that, it would be 22 and 10. Like Josh Hart was super solid, didn't miss any of his 5 shots, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and a block. It was just as complete of an effort as this team has played all season. And it just, I don't know about you, like it gives me a lot of confidence just to know that they can do this against a really good team. Like Denver has not been blown out this season. They were coming off their win of the season. They just beat the Lakers by 25 points. And for the Knicks to go into Denver and for the second year in a row, I think last year was a home game where they wrecked Denver, but just absolutely decimated a team that is a year and a half removed from being NBA champions. Like it does feel like it's worth more than one game. Maybe the Knicks come around and put together like a just utter crap effort against the Mavericks on Wednesday. I hope not, because you're going to be there. But this has me feeling a lot better about things. But before we wrap up, we have to talk about the turd in the oh so delicious punch bowl, and that is Mikal Bridges. You read out his stat line. He is now 8 for 34 from distance over the last 5 games. That is 23%. For those of you who don't want to do math, the free throw-less streak continues. I think you said, what was it, 4 games, 5 games last time? It is another game longer. Let me see. It's now 6 games for Mikal Bridges, 6 games without a free throw attempted, and it is 7 of the last 11. He has not taken a free throw. That's not good. Alex, I'll leave it to you, but I can't help but thinking, man, as good as this looks, if he gets it going in any meaningful way, like the Knicks might just have the best offense in basketball this year.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I thought that maybe it was just the rose-colored glasses of the overall greatness of the game, but I did think that he played a little more within the offensive concept in this one and looked more confident, at least, even if the shots weren't going in. I don't know what it's going to take for those to start going in. It seems like he's kind of in a funk. Like he even had the comment after the game the other day where Tibbs benched him down the stretch where, I mean, he just flat out admitted, like, yeah, I think that was the right call. And like, that's never good when you hear that out of a player. You want to hear players being like, no, he's a bum. I should have been playing, whatever, like anything. You just want more than, just I don't want to call it apathy, but just acceptance of not being good at any given moment. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully things turn around for him. I will say he was second on the team in assists in this one. I thought he was moving the ball pretty well. So as long as he continues doing that, and if he can keep his defense at a good level, which unfortunately has also come in fits and spurts this year, then I think the Knicks will be good. But, I'm not ready to raise the alarm just yet. I will say, like, you mentioned Deuce coming back. That was a huge thing for making it a little more palatable if Bridges doesn't have the best game, because they ran a lineup out there, I believe, at one point that was basically just it was the starters, but with Deuce in for Mikal for a minute, I think. And it looked pretty good. And, that makes you be like, all right, well, if Mikal's having off nights still, at least you have Deuce sitting in the wings, like ready to go, who can, at a smaller stature, still provide you with that elite defense and really good shooting and all those things that you're hoping that you're going to get out of Mikal Bridges over the course of the whole season. I'll also just throw a small shout out to Jericho Sims in this game too. I thought that he actually, his defensive renaissance continues to impress me. Like 2 blocks in this one. He was also Josh Hart and OG Anunoby registered a block each, but he was the block leader for the team in this game, and 4 boards in just 14 minutes. Like, didn't score any points, but he's starting to get to that point where it doesn't really matter if he scores points. Like he's impactful on the game and is filling space well and contesting well at the rim and all that. And luckily Cat was doing more of that in this game too. But again, sort of like with having Deuce as the backup plan to Mikal Bridges, it's kind of crazy that Jericho Sims has now become a decent backup plan. So like if Cat's having an off night, that you can at least sub Jericho in there, get the defense and the rebounding and everything. and be all right and let everybody else just cook and score the points. I'll also just shout out Jamal Crawford again. Apparently this was his last game for a while. I really enjoyed his work on the broadcast again. I thought they did a really nice job. My funniest moment with him in this particular, so the first thing is him getting on Breen's case about answering trivia, because Breen got like shouted out on Twitter like 4 games ago about always answering the trivia and ruining it for the people at home. And so every time trivia comes up now, Crawford will be like, all right, don't answer it, Mike. Don't answer it. Remember, you're not allowed to answer it. And then at one point gave him crap during this game because he asked him, like, what do you think? Do you think that the Knicks are going to break the assist record? And Breen just kind of waffled on. It was like, I don't know, maybe. I think it's a good chance they at least hit it now. And then Crawford's like, oh, so you won't answer trivia, you want to answer trivia like crazy, but you won't answer this one. And Breen kind of got a good laugh out of that. And then also him harkening back to the fact that he was an active player like only a handful of years ago, and Cameron Payne and Russell Westbrook were kind of getting into it in this one and like yelling at each other across the court. Maybe it was good nature, maybe it wasn't. They both certainly looked pissed off, but that's kind of just how both of them look all the time. But he made a comment at one point about like, oh, I'm surprised to see those two John with each other. Like they were dance partners. Like that's referencing all their pregame dances and everything in OKC and all that, and the friendship that they had back when they were teammates. So just very funny. I like Jamal Crawford a lot. I'm very much in the Jamal Crawford for heir apparent to Clyde camp. I'll take him over Wally or Hahn any day, to be honest. I just think he has a little more character in that spot and some of that Clyde-like chemistry of a former player next to Mike Breen. And Mike Breen clearly has so much reverence for great former players like that, which just weirdly doesn't carry over to Wally for some reason. Like they never really seem to talk in the same way that he talks with Clyde or like he's been talking with Jamal Crawford. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Mike knows that Wally played in the NBA for like 12 years. It doesn't really. Yeah,
he doesn't really ask him those questions.
Yeah, he's like you wrote for Newsday, right? He's like that was Alan Mike. It's like, all right, whatever. Clyde's coming back on that. That's always the funniest thing with Mike is he sounds so incredibly excited when Clyde's doing the next game. Like he's on with one of them, and he's like Clyde's gonna be back Monday. Yeah, and Wally's like, thanks, Mike. But, yeah, I'm with you. Jamal was awesome. Great reference at one point. Like he was like talking about the Knicks playing great defense. He's like, look, I don't know that personally, and I didn't really do a lot of that. And Mike was like, well, you had great defense played against you. Jamal's like, that's true. So that was good. Anyways, this is a very fun game. If you can't tell, we're in much better moods. I hope you all are too. Enjoy your Mondays. I'll be back tonight. Alex will join us Wednesday after that Mavs game. He'll be there in person, so that'll be a lot of fun. We will talk to you all throughout the week here on Locked On Knicks.